Hey guys, it's Matt. There's so many videos that I want to make, but I can't. I mean, the Not Milk, the dark reality's throwing too much at us. How do I talk about severance in the upcoming season and that interesting concept where potentially the severed workers cut off from their outside selves parallels, our world here potentially with what you would call higher self? I mean, that's very interesting. It's a reality conversation. I want to talk about Dark Matter, that series about the multiverse I just watched on Apple TV. I picked Apple TV up because I want to watch Severance 2. I have a list of Not Milk travel tours. But how do you do it? With what is going on in Southern California, I can't do it right now. I can't we're just going to go back and have laughs. Eventually we will have to, because maybe the Not Milk and the dark reality will never stop. We will have to, no matter what happens. But for now, I am going to talk about how the stalled century reality, a lot happens, but nothing happens. This is related in a way, or maybe even more directly than we think, to the Southern California wildfires. In a stalled century, in a fake world, in a fake reality, a lot happens. But when you back up and look at the whole, nothing happens. It's still completely stalled out. And that's what I want to talk about today. But specifically, in terms of the fires in Southern California and Los Angeles, I can't say much more on that. I've been very clear, I think, over the last few videos. If anybody's missed a video or two, I'll do a 1-minute summary, and then we can move on. In terms of the cause of the fires, the strange winds, yes, the Santa Ana winds have been around for hundreds of years, documented, but not like this. Is it natural and organic? No, it's not. Was paradise/camp? No, it's not. Something on this channel, if you're new, it's called Not Milk. We'll leave it at that. If you continue to search for the cause and watch your videos, and is it HAARP, is it this and that, then that's what it wants you to do. We'll never know exactly what's going on or how it pulls off all that it pulls off. End the search. Do part 2, the worry about yourself activities. In terms of supporting such a strange notion that the cause of both the winds and the fires is not natural. Matt, you must mean primate change in global charming. No, I don't mean that either. I mean just blatantly coming from Not Milk, of course. The second part of that, though, confirms the first, and you have to literally have your head up your ass, as 99.8998% of the population has, in terms of the strange anomalies we've seen. Fire after fire. Okay, we've been over them. Cars sitting in the middle of asphalt, completely melted out. Okay, we've been over this. Okay, no reason to keep doing it. The anomalies, the strange anomalies, are so massive, so impossible, the list so long, you literally have to have your head up your ass, as most of the American population does. Here's a CNN News headline that demonstrates the principle of opposites. Under the major headline is about the fires. Underneath, a bullet point says how some structures survived. Actually, a few structures actually weren't burned, and how it happened. It's really the rule of opposites. Based on what we've been talking about, once the wall of fire stopped and it was just neighborhoods, most structures, based on every single piece of building material that we talked about being non-flammable, unless something very strange is going on, most structures should have, quote, as the CNN article put it, survived the fire. So it's just the opposite. They make it seem like, oh my gosh, there were a few that, here, how did they do it? Where it should have been just the opposite. 90%, once the wall stopped and it was just spreading around neighborhoods, 90 to 95% of the structures should have had no problem. Oh, thank you for auto-saving, GarageBand. This is now the second loss of electricity today. It's averaging about once a month. Certain parts of Baghdad are a bit more reliable than we are up here. I don't know, what is it this time? It's always a limb through a tree. If you have reliable electricity, and you haven't gone down, say, more than one little time for every 5 years, you you really do take it for granted. Really, should once a year throw the switch yourself. Put yourself and your family in the dark and just pretend it's for real. It's a weird experience. We don't realize how much we rely on it. Up here, very similar to parts of, say, Western Baghdad, been out, like I said, collectively over 2 months. Been out since I moved in here. That's 2 this morning. And thank you for the autosave, GarageBand. I didn't even know that feature was in here. Okay, in case it goes down again and I need to put out a short video like using a generator or something, let me talk about the reason I wanted to make this video. It relates to Stalled Century, the Nothin Minions, and its infrastructures and its systems. One of its main goals, of course, is to stall out time, Stalled Century, hold on to something, push back on the procession of the equinox. Who knows what creepy horse shit it's up to? It's a weird mother effer. But in terms of stalling it out, one of the things I've noticed, one of its tactics is if you're very close to it, there's a lot going on, but nothing ever really changes. The fires is a perfect example. I mean, oh my! All the news headlines, and there's so much to follow. And those in our community follow the anomalies, and people down the street, or they give money to charity, and it's so sad. And the football games are switched to Arizona, and thousands of things are going on. And Matt, that's not it's not Stalled Century. There's thousands of things going on. When you back up, though, when the dust settles, what will have changed? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. You go to Los Angeles 6 months from now. It'll just be Los Angeles. Oh, you can go up there and see burned buildings, but it will generally be Los Angeles. Things will just go on. Disney will continue to put out its horrible series like Ahsoka, and what's the new one called? The Skeleton Crew that nobody's watching. If you back up, nothing ever changes. That is a symptom of a fake world, a fake reality. Here's what I'm talking about. Well, what would be a change then? Here's what would be a change. After this is a big one because Southern California, you think, oh, up there in the hills and Paradise/Campfire and up on the other side of Oxnard, and that doesn't affect us. And now that it's right there, and then there's the threat of earthquake and the costs and the rents and the insurance. And here's what you would expect if things changed. If it wasn't a fake reality stalled out in some sort of weird stalled century. That just, I don't know, hundreds of thousands of people a month or a week just say, I've had enough. Put their homes up. All of a sudden, there's tens of thousands of homes for sale. People, a whole percentage of I don't know, 5% of LA said, I've had enough. That would be a huge, massive, sweeping change. The real estate market would implode. Just 5% is all it would take. People saying, I can't deal with this anymore. I'm going to go, like I've said a few videos back, go live with the uncle and aunt in Tennessee. They'll put me up and my wife up for a year until we get our footing. Try to sell the house. If we get 70%, great. The market's already overinflated. And they might say, I bought it 14 years ago. If I can just get out what I put in. Nothing ever changes. That's what's so weird about this reality. You can go to Palisades 6 months from now. You'll see burned buildings. But generally, LA, the freeways will be packed. Nothing will have fundamentally changed. And it never does in this fake reality. So we could continue with this theme in almost every single area. Lots of stuff going on, but when you back up, nothing's going on. The best example of all time is probably space. And the people are conditioned to think a lot is going on. And there's a lot of breadcrumbs even that get our attention in our community. You could say to someone that's interested in this area or goes out to space.com once a day to see what's new, they would say, oh, there's so much going on, Matt. Look what Elon Musk and SpaceX just did this. There's a new program regarding the Dragon Heavy 666. Whatever it is, there's tons. Oh, Matt, you know these reverse retro rocket thrusters can now land on their own. And there's all this stuff going on. You back up. You know what's going on? Nothing. In terms of anything that's real. Where is the mission to Mars? Where is the return to the moon? In terms of anything that's real, it's just a bunch of little noise. That's what the reality does. That's how it stalls it out. Fools idiots. Maybe like the vintage space girl. We had something. Call me vintage space. Maybe we can rekindle it. I would have to no longer date Yasmin or Jasmine from the Young Turks. I'm sorry, Chank or Chunk or whatever your name from the Young Turks. I'm dating her now. Sorry. See, if they think a lot's going on, if they're close to it, but guess what's going on? Nothing. It's a fake world. So just sitting here for a few minutes thinking, and still have electricity. I thought we would be part of the Baghdad rolling blackout program, but I guess not today. It's a different cause. We have kind of a new principle. A lot going on and nothing and nothing going on. That's a song. We could make a song. There's a lot going on and nothing going on. There's a lot going on. It seems that way even to us sometimes. Go look at the headlines It's a lot going on and a whole lot of nothing going on. It's a stalled century, my friends. Earlier I said space is the best example of this, but politics, without a doubt. Politics. Scandals come and people are put in jail and the Republicans go in, and a lot going on and absolutely nothing going on. It's the same old debt. It's the same old. But see, everybody knows that, man, that's Pootie Tang Award. I mean, everybody knows that about politics, that nothing ever changes. But yeah, but that's what we're talking about, the fires and things like that. I'm talking about like wars in the Middle East. The Middle East never changes. It's just one group fighting with another all the time. What's wrong with those people? What the hell is wrong with you, people? It's this conflict and this dictator. Just stop it. Why don't you examine yourselves? What about yourself? What the heck's wrong with the entire Middle East? My gosh. Is there a way we could disassociate with it? Okay, politics is a Pootie Tang Award, but even the fires. You see what I'm saying? This huge thing that should be a ripple, a cause and effect. You should see the tens of thousands a month just saying, I've had enough. We should see the real estate market in LA just plunge down for 3 years because people have had enough and they're getting out. But 6 months from now, you know what's going to happen. It's always the same in this reality. You can see some burnout buildings. Okay, yeah, of course. I'm not denying that. But then collectively, LA will just be LA like it always has been. Nothing will have fundamentally changed. Now, let's hope AI and technology also follows this trend, but whenever we've had the stalled century conversation in the past, we've said there is one exception. The phones, the tech, the apps. Your toilet still flushes the exact same way it did in 1948. Exact same. Nothing ever changes unless, there's a couple people that have those suck flushes. A friend of mine had that. I hit it. Went, what the hell is that? It's like you're in a restaurant or something. Okay, but for the most part, but tech usually bucks the trend. We've said the apps and the phones, and whenever it's benefit to not milk, then it does push its progress forward, and that could happen again with the AI. But let's hope that AI will follow this general reality trend in everything, where across the board it's a lot going on and really nothing going on, with the exception, at least in the past, of tech. That has been the only area where you could say it's bucked the trend. Let's hope that a lot going on, nothing going on, though, also applies to AI. Because there's certainly a lot going on. There's whole YouTube channels and websites dedicated to the Matt Wolf channel. I haven't looked at him or looked at his channel in months, but weekly there are major breakthroughs for years now in AI and new breakthroughs for large language models and LLMs. The world really needs another LLM. So it seems that technology has been an exception to the stalled century rules and principles. I mean, to me, that's still stalled. I mean, who needs another app? Who needs another app for the phone? That's worse than stalled out as far as I'm concerned. But it is possible the AI will continue the trend of tech and in its own way, in its own sick sense of metrics, continue to advance and not stall out. And if it continues, the AI, as it gets closer to AGI, artificial general intelligence, which some in tech, they line it up with some form of sentience. If it's only at step 2 right now, like large language models are step 1 with the AI art. They're only about step 2. They have 5 steps to get to AGI. That's what they call, it could be considered the singularity by some, or artificial general intelligence / sentience. If it gets close to that, yes, there will be tens of millions of people in certain industries or fields becoming unemployed in a 1-year period. There'll be no need for a computer programmer ever again. Everyone will be out of business if AGI comes. So if it gets there, then that will be a real change to society. But right now, it is following along with everything else, with politics, with space. Right now, the principle holds across the board. There's a lot going on, a ton going on. If you look closely, you're in the middle of it. There's a lot going on and nothing going on. There's a lot going on and nothing going on. AI hasn't changed anything, and society has. Now, okay, tech could be the exception to all this, because right now, this is not Nilk's realm. You and I aren't. We don't want to be kings here. We don't. This is to be a king here is to really be a sad individual. It rules here, so it potentially will have this technology and its AI buck the trend. But right now, the principle holds. Even with AI, there's a lot going on and nothing going on. Don't misquote me. That doesn't mean there won't be a breakthrough in tech. That's the one area that seems to be able to escape the stalled century principles. If anybody's listening to this that's new and you're saying to yourself, well, I kind of see what you're saying, Matt. All these different areas, there's so much going on in headlines and the dust settles and it's just the same old thing over and over again. Another version of Magnum PI and MacGyver on television. What does this mean? It means fake world. Okay, this channel should be called Fake World Channel because it's endless symptom after symptom, example after example of a world that can't possibly be real. If a whole group of people are on some sort of a download, whether they're spiritual beings and they went under the dragon's wing or they're a different sort of entity, if they're all on a download, that's not a real world. That can't come from no Big Bang, Stephen Hawking. Should be called Fake World Channel because we've introduced, 10,000 examples of a situation that couldn't possibly come from a real world. If you get lost or confused as to what I'm saying, it's just another fake world example. It always probably comes back to the same sentence. Okay, regarding everything we've talked about thus far regarding stalled century, let's continue to apply it to the number one news headline, at least in North America today, about the Southern California fires, the Los Angeles fires. Okay, if in a real world something eventually would crack, something eventually would change, eventually there'd be a fundamental shift, the pendulum would swing back in the other direction once in a while, in a real world. You've heard that before here. How about this? We, a certain group of people that follow reality very closely, every once in a while we get a win in a real world. It's not a real world when we never get a win. And a win meaning of all the things we've looked at, of all the ways reality has given itself away, just in one little area, having a friend or Uncle Joe say, you know what, you guys were right about that. It'll never happen. Let's not, Matt, are you expecting it? I'm not expecting it to happen. That's also proof of a fake world. So you have no proof. Her balls were as big as her Adam's apple. So you have no proof. It's a fake world. Joe will never come around to us and say, in this one area, Bigfoot? No, but in that other area, you guys were right. It'll never happen. That's also a symptom of a fake world. But in a real world, something like this might happen. Let's not lose sight of the main news headline we're applying this to. The straw that broke the camel's back comes into play very significantly here. If the world were real, this event would be the straw. There would be several million people in Southern California that over the next 2 years would say, I've had enough. And remember, I'm not just talking about strange weather phenomenon and mudslides and unexplainable fire anomalies. I'm talking about just the beans and rice stuff, the ABCs of living in Southern California. How about the taxes? The property taxes, the graduated income taxes, sitting in the freeway, the crime. All that stuff factors in. And you put on top of that, you can't get earthquake insurance. You own a home, unless you're completely and incredibly wealthy, every day you just risk it all because you can't get earthquake insurance. And now for many parts of the region, you won't be able to get fire insurance, or it'll be some reduced bullshit policy, or the premiums will go, the fire rider will be separate. It'll be a separate $800 a month in certain areas. You have your regular insurance if the pipes break, and the fire rider, like they do the wind, is a separate rider in certain parts of Florida and in hurricane zones, separate policies. At some point, it would break. People would break. They've had enough and it's all that the governments have done, the weird way they've acted in 2020, and the no rights. I'm not just talking about the mudslides and all the weird stuff and the not created stuff. I'm talking about just the slow water drip torture or the paper cuts. I felt it. I was there for 3 years. I was in California 6, but I would have quit if they didn't get me out of Southern California. Pushing into 3.5 years, that this was kind of saying to them, I'm not staying here. It was like a paradise compared to what it was to what it is today. Certainly nothing what it was in the 40s and 50s, where the government got too big and the graduated income taxes up to close to 10%, and all the you can't take that water off your roof in the gutters. That's a violation. It's water rights. You can't collect your own rainwater. All the stuff they get up in your business. This event, if the world were real. Not that it would be empty, and it would be just rollerblading around the I-5 and not a car on it. But this would be the event. If the world were real, over the next year and a half, the housing would tank because there'd be 25,000, 50,000 people a month putting their homes up, saying, I can't do this anymore. Per stalled century, I'm not sure that sort of thing can happen in this fake world. If people are on a download, tens of millions of people are on a download, and the Nothin wants a crowded Southern California, and the Nothin wants freeways that are always jam-packed, and it just it'll keep doing its thing in terms of all the crisis and the catastrophe and the mudslides and the fires and the earthquakes and all that has come with living in Southern California, which has gotten magnified recently. But if the Nothin wants it jam-packed with people, and these people are acting out a life script in some way or on the download, then what I'm talking about, this will never happen. This is what I'm talking about, is a fundamental change in the way things are. And that just doesn't happen in this century. Okay, right about now, several people listening are wanting to yell at me regarding 2020, the big event, the C, the V. Matt, what do you mean nothing happens? We got locked away. The world was put into a face covering, at least the Western world, in 6 weeks. People are driving around with masks. The stores are closing. Okay, of course, we all went through it. But maybe that's a little proviso in this general rule about stalled century. Look out your window today. What's the fundamental shift in terms of how we live? It's the same. Maybe this rule or principle, if you agree with it, does need a little fine print or some bullet points that say, yes, major things can happen like 2020, but once the dust settles and it all plays out, what happens? Like nothing. It's just, we just go on. There's no real fundamental shift in terms of how we live or what this century is. Yeah, they push the Action Jacksonations more now, and you get a free turkey or something if you rent more movies, and yeah, they push that. But it's amazing to me how close to the 2018 world this world is based on what we all went through around 2020. But maybe that is a principle or a fundamental rule of this reality regarding whatever they're trying to do with stalled century. If you're going to stall it, you can't have it both ways, Nothin. The rules of reality, if you're going to stall it, then it's once the dust settles on your shenanigans, it'll just be what it once was. Look out your window. Yeah, we went through a lot in a focused period, tons, like the world's never seen before. Look out your window. What's fundamentally changed in the world? Nothing. It's just what it was. Anybody can shoot holes in this general argument about reality as you get closer to the events. Somebody that's walking through Pacific Palisades, or there's a part of a certain hill that has not been on fire, and it's on fire, and it's approaching their home, and they're listening to me, for example. I mean, just go with this. They say, what do you mean nothing happens? You can look around, look over the 2 miles this way in Pacific Palisades. What do you mean nothing happens? From a general sense. Go to Los Angeles 2 years from now. It'll still look like Los Angeles. You understand what I'm saying? And I keep saying the same example. The people saying I've had enough and moving out. And LA, not being a ghost town, but just taking 20 years to recover. And that sort of thing, the macro stuff, nothing changes from a stalled century perspective. If you're in the middle of it, yeah, Pacific Palisades has changed. Okay, but that is micro compared to the general reality trends that I'm talking about that apply across the board. Since the main topic here is California, we could apply basically the same rules to San Francisco. What San Francisco was that I experienced, like the tail end of what San Francisco used to be when I was there, say 2000, 2001, 2002. It was kind of dirty and seedy, but maybe I got a little flavor of what San Francisco used to be. At least I mentioned, remember, from the Ferry Building on Market Street all the way up to City Hall, the shops were open. It was the middle of that dot-com boom. Yeah, it was getting dirty and seedy, and it just didn't sit right with me, and I was happy to get out of that place too. But what it is today, every shop, or 4 out of 5 shops closed, all the store districts all closing, boarding up, the crime going through the roof. Again, just like Southern California, the people are still there. The huge conferences still are. There's a huge conference for pharmaceutical industry taking place in San Francisco this week. It's taken place there, I think, the last 15 or 20 years. They still, why would they go back? A crime, and pick any other city. Just the people are still there. There's never a change in government, a philosophy that's destroyed the city, yet the same old liberal policies. The people don't say we need to do things completely different. Look what our streets have become. It's the same wacko liberal crazies that get in power. And I mean, okay, it's just, if there is a no vote and it's all put in by Nothin or whatever, then why don't the people mass exit, say, well, I can't deal with this anymore? But they just go along with it. It's a download, and the download is part of stalled century. There's thousands of examples that play out. I mean, I'm not doing a great job talking about San Francisco. It just kind of jumped into my head as we're talking about California, but it's just another example. Like it will become a degradation of what it was. But what's the fundamental shift that I'm talking about here? It'll just kind of go on. The degradation itself, the slow rot, is not the fundamental shift that I'm talking about. That's more like stalled century. The fundamental shift many times is more with the people. Why don't they who would want to live in San Francisco? The crime, the homeless, the people, I don't even want to say it. I've seen some really bad things on the streets. I mean, and the rents and the prices for what? It's not the San Francisco you knew, Haight-Ashbury, 1969, with Jerry Garcia running down the street naked with just his guitar covering his thing. That doesn't exist anymore. But yet it will just go on. The symptoms of a stalled century are the symptoms of a fake world. I'm using the same example. Where's the mass exodus out of San Francisco? It doesn't make any sense. You couldn't say, where are they going to go? Oh, they have the money to go elsewhere. They have the money to get elsewhere in 2 weeks if they wanted to. Okay, you might not like some of my examples, but in general, I bet most of you agree. Look at the Middle East. We'll do that for a few minutes. It just has endless cycles, Middle East peace talks, and this will happen for 8 to 10 or 12 years. And then there'll be a cycle of war, whether it's not just Palestine and Israel and then Syria, and then it's Libya, and then it's Iraq, and it's the entire Middle East, the turmoil. It'll never stop. It's part of this reality. It's stalled, but things happen inside its own little boxing ring, right? But overall, as you back up, nothing happens. Because this is the same shit that's been going on forever. So if you're right in the middle of it, there's a lot going on. There's a nothing going on. If you're in the middle of it, sure, there's a lot going on. There's this war, there's that war, there's Aleppo's bombed out, and now there's Palestine and Gaza. But as you back up farther, or from a perception further, it's a lot going on, and then it's the same old nothing. That's another reason to never get close to it. Always go back to 100,000 feet to observe, and that's not far enough. Go back another 400,000 feet. Look down from as far away as you can get. Then you can see how false it is. That's one of its main tricks. Oh, it gets you right in the middle of it. Or if you're not in the middle of it, you're just on a train reading the paper about Gaza or whatever, it will put you there, and then it will tell you about the specifics of the hostages and all. It's hiding. It's a master at hiding fake world. Well, it doesn't have to be a master today, does it? It could be a masturbator and hide a false world from these idiots let me be a little bit kinder. People around us, I don't want to say idiots. Let's just say have their head up their ass. by this notion, if we are in some sort of fake reality, stalled century, reality pushed to the side, reality pulled out of its normal dimension and placed somewhere else on a shelf somewhere, we should stop talking about things like the national debt, for example. We always come back to common sense, right? Well, it can't go up forever. 30 trillion, 35 trillion, 40 trillion. 45 trillion. Who's servicing the debt when they float bonds, T-bills, etc.? Who's buying it? 50 trillion. We'd say, well, it can't possibly go on forever. If we're in a stalled century in a reality that's been moved off to the side or Horcruxed off into Ravenclaw's lost item, anything could go. It can, yes. It could potentially, if that's the reality we're in, it could go on forever. 60 trillion, 70 trillion. I think we should stop applying common sense standards to a reality that has derailed. Remember what David Spade said to Tommy and Tommy Boy? Tommy, you have derailed, my friend. Look, petrified forest. It's derailed. I'm not going to say that anymore. It certainly can't go on forever. That's applying too much common sense. Who's buying this debt? They have to float trillions of T-bills and bonds, and there'd be no buyers. Everybody can see there's no buyers, so they're buying it themselves, and then that's going to expose the system. I'm going to stop. I'm going to stop applying any degree of common sense. What's that? Was that a Talking Heads thing? Stop making sense? That was an insight into reality that goes back to the early 80s or something. I'm going to stop it. Maybe it can go to 100 trillion in debt, 400 trillion in debt. It's stall. What can we do to break the stall? Something. It works hard, doesn't it? Doesn't have it all locked up. Is there something like shallow Hal wants a gal? That phrase that took the whammy off me. You can see Rosemary for what? Who's that big woman, robust woman eating my girlfriend's salad? Well, that's your girlfriend, honey. How do we get the shallow Hal wants a gal? And it could get very, very ugly but we're tired of it. Maybe maybe we're willing to go through the ugliness if we can break the stalled century. I put it to you, Greg. How do we break the stalled century? I don't think it's going to be a little phrase like shallow Hal wants a gal, but it's working hard. I don't think it has it all locked away. I don't think it's with its feet up. It works too hard in its presentation. Okay, guys, I see it's over 30 minutes because I have quote, gone down electrically twice. It makes you a little paranoid. There was a lot to talk about here. I'll look to your comments. And I guess the main thing for the comments to close, is there any part of reality that's bucking the trend of stalled century, where there is a complete fundamental shift other than tech? Like, well, Matt, I can pay and get my hoagie with just Apple Pay phone. I can just swipe my phone. That's all come. A big deal. Right, but in terms of a fundamental shift of how people live their lives, nothing changes, and if there is any sort of change, it's for the worse. It's never for the better, but that's just normal to the people around us. That's normal, and you're just one of those people. Thanks for listening.